If you've been enjoying R4E, the Reason for Everything podcast, please be sure to like, follow, and subscribe on all platforms or wherever you get your podcasts. Actually lives in Barton Creek in a retirement home in Austin, so I make my way down there quite a bit, and I
Well,
love.
come visit us soon and have a little chai together.
I'd love that, man. I'd love that, and I hope you and yours had a good Nowruz. But really, like I said, I've been able to keep up with you and your world and your ether on social media over the last couple of years, and just I feel like in my 20s, as I've learned more about spirituality and all of the overlap from what I'm interested in and what you put out into the universe, I wanted to hear it right from your mouth and what you really preach online and how you've been able to kind of blend the worlds of spirituality and business as well, because it's this interesting intersection that I feel like are almost intuitively contradicting each other. And so that's a little bit about why I want to chat with you today and why I'm so excited to have you across the screen. I started the show a little over a year ago with the intention of speaking with like-minded individuals, and kind of selfishly wanted to build a video journal of what I looked like and sounded like. I'm 27 now. At the time I was 26 when I started this. I wanted to be able to sit in a rocking chair one day with my grandkids, great grandkids, and say, here's what I looked like and sounded like and what I was thinking about when I was in my 20s. Almost
That's
more so than
cool.
a journal would. That's why I started it. I started just interviewing some friends and some people in my network. And from there, I've been able to talk to some incredible individuals. I know we had the overlap with Dave Meltzer and a couple of others, but that's my why. And really for today's conversation, just want to learn more about you and your journey. Like I said, we're both Iranian Americans living here in the States. And so there's an instant connection there. But from there, I'd love to just give you a chance to introduce yourself to my audience, answer any questions you might have about, why I'm doing this, and we can dive right into it.
Yeah, sure. I appreciate that. I think that, to answer your question, I think that, spirituality is kind of the source that allows, especially in this world, for, great entrepreneurship to even exist, because the amount of information that is being thrown at us is greater by an exponential factor than any other time in history. And, before, throughout different times in history, the equanimity that people had just by virtue of life itself before the internet, or certainly before TikTok, things weren't coming at you where you had to make these split second decisions, and them to also be thoughtful and be precise. And so this is like being an entrepreneur these days is like being a Shaolin monk, as well as being a business person, simultaneously. And I found that as I got busier, I mean, I started my business with a $3,500 loan. And we started Rastegar under this banner 9 years ago. And if you fully develop everything that we own, you take all the land and you bring them all to completion, we're in the billions. And to be able to do that and be a sole owner without taking equity at the corporate level, the amount of decisions that have to be made in so many different areas and so many different subjects, that you need to find a place to have peace. And I believe now more than ever, the most valuable asset that we have, if we're able to achieve it, is some semblance of peace. And whether you find that in a walk, in a nap, in the evenings, and intermittent moments. My hope is one day that I'm taking this call from the Himalayas inside of a cave somewhere when it's all said and done. Um, a lot more work to do before that. But I think that our businesses are natural extensions of who we are. And I found, certainly for me, like I wrote an entire book on everything that I fucked up in life, which has been pretty much everything, until it started to work, and all the micro corrections that happen along the way. But transcendental meditation has been one of the saving graces of my life, and I learned about it from Ray Dalio. I actually was sitting up front at a conference, and I've followed his work my entire career. I remember when Principles, which is now one of his best-selling books, was just published on his website, on the Bridgewater website, and I was fortunate enough to get a copy of it even before it was a book, and reading through it and following the things he did. And being a fanboy, I stood in line and got to speak with him for a moment, and people were just asking him questions. And I kind of asked him, is there something, outside of business, that you would recommend? Like if there's a piece of advice that, a, young, humble entrepreneur could learn from. And he said, learn to meditate.
Mm.
And it, like, took me back a little bit. And I came to learn through a couple Google searches that he does transcendental meditation, which is a style. The reason we use the word, meditation as a colloquialism in Western culture is because of Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, that brought it from India, taught the Beatles and a bunch of big celebrities, and it became kind of a main, I guess more of a mainstream word, but it's a very formal education. I've since completed, several advanced techniques and my city program and my yoga flying programs, which has taken, almost a decade. In fact, after this, I'm going to Fairfield, Iowa, which is considered the meditation capital of North America. That I try to go to as a reprieve. Although I like meditate then work, meditate then work. One of the biggest, I guess, misunderstandings about meditation, certainly a mantra-based meditation like TM is that meditation is about relaxing.
Mm.
And in actuality, meditation is preparation for activity. And the analogy that he gives is an archer pulling back a bow. And the meditation is pulling back the bow, and then you go out into reality and do what you do. So in a perfect world, you meditate, then work, meditate, then work. And that's exactly what I do when I'm out there. I've been a big supporter of the organization for years. Actually, the head of the organization, John Hagelin, wrote a testimonial in my book. We spent a lot of time together. And, the saying is you water the root to enjoy the fruit. And that's been really the point. What I love about it is it's not a religion. There's not any belief system, no dogmatic belief system. People of all religions, all backgrounds, all belief systems can benefit from this kind of mental technique, which also borders on spiritual if you'd like it to. But if not, lowering cortisol levels, increasing heart-brain coherence, and a variety of physiological benefits. For me, it's been an absolute game changer. And like I said, it's a complementary piece where twice a day, 20 minutes a day, sometimes more if time permits, I'm able to get in that place and then go out and do the work that needs to be done. And I find that I can do it from a much more, I guess, from a place of better coherence, for lack of a better word. And from that place, better decisions are made over the long haul.
Absolutely fascinating. And I didn't realize that Ray Dalio was, deep in the meditation space. I've got Changing World
He
Order on my.
attributes it to his success. He says it's the single number. He attributes, if he had to pick a singular reason of any success he's had in his life, he relates it to transcendental meditation. He's been very vocal about it.
That's fine. I have a Changing World Order on my coffee table over there, and I find him so fascinating. And I think that's a good segue. You started your career on Wall Street, in high finance of sorts. That really contradicts, like we started. Go ahead, please.
Not exactly. Actually, I'm an attorney by trade, which is,
Okay.
I guess kind of brushed over a lot. Not just by you, but because it's not something I've talked about too much. But I was an English major in undergrad, and then my thoughts were to become an attorney. That was as far as I could really look. But being an English major, thinking myself more of an artist than a businessman, I practiced law for a very short period of time and found that it wasn't for me. And then through a few twists of fate, I got to New York running an entertainment business. Never with the intention initially of being on Wall Street or even being in real estate. Although I ran a real estate development company while I was in law school, which is discussion for another time, as if law school wasn't tiresome enough. And I borrowed $3,500 to, buy a little lot, north of where my school was. And I was building during the day and, going to school at night. And it was through a couple little twists of fate and the power of relationships that kind of got me in the room with some of the biggest financiers in the history of America. And, through that proximity, because I'm a big believer that proximity is power, good and bad. The proximity to the wrong people can create a powerful negative effect. The proximity to the right people, so to speak, will have a profoundly positive effect. And that proximity doesn't discriminate. it's completely amoral. So whatever you're around, more often than not, begins to rub off. And I think all of our moms and dads in some regard have said that to us of don't hang out with that group and, you're going to end up, like blah, 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 or, why aren't you more like so-and-so's kid? Or, you hear these through jest, but I find that these little cliches are cliches for a reason. And certainly in my life, I found that the more that those circles have advanced in the direction that I'd like to be, the probability of succeeding within whatever that channel is also greatly increased. And like I said, the double-edged sword slices the other way as well.
Totally agree. And it's interesting. You mentioned the point about your parents and the advice of, you end up being there. All the different sayings are, you end up being the sum of the people you spend the most amount of time with. I'd love to dive into that a little bit further again with some similarity of backgrounds culturally. What was it like for you growing up as an Iranian American? How did that mold and shape you to where you are today?
I think it's a tremendous, tremendous, tremendous benefit. I think that so much of the way that I see the world is through the culture education from my father. So much of my childhood, I was raised by my dad as, really a single dad. My mother is German, my father is Iranian. But my father is a very singular, pivotal person in my life. And, after around 10 years old, I went to live with my dad, and we were in his like kind of Iranian background was really the backbone, so to speak, of so much of what we believe in. So being an Iranian American, I think, was one of the greatest benefits of my life. When I look back, and Steve Jobs used to say, you can't connect the dots moving forward, which I've come to disagree with a little bit, but certainly when you look backwards, it's much easier to see, how things transpired and the culture, certainly for Iranians, being a doctor or a lawyer are almost the only two educations that your parents won't banish you from their respective kingdoms. Maybe an engineer is a third-rate citizen with whatever cultural, stereotypes there are. So I became a lawyer because my father literally said to me, after you become a lawyer, you can be an exotic dancer for all I care, but you're going to be a lawyer, exotic dancer. But all joking aside, I went to live with my dad when I was 10 years old, and the culture of the history of Iran was very much a part of almost every dialogue we had, and understanding where we come from to know where we're going, and the language is a very poetic language. It's very much kind of the French of the Middle East, although Farsi, as any good Iranian will tell you, predates all these languages. And I wouldn't be a good Iranian if I didn't say that. But the work ethic and the vision and the desire to build something grandiose and be a empire builder, for lack of a better term. And I see myself, I'm not motivated as much by money. Obviously, we've built a multi-billion-dollar platform, but I'm not a Rolex and Ferrari kind of guy. Like, to me, it was always about reaching my own zenith and getting to a place where we're building great things for great people and being a part of the communities that we're in. And that sounds so cheesy now, but when you've done it at the scale we have, I find that they accept my cheesiness a little bit more when you have the balance sheet that we have. But we do it because we have a better way that we can serve our clients and serve our customers and serve our cities. And we've been agnostic to what we build, in that we have office, self-storage, industrial, housing, multifamily, condos, you name it, because we felt those are the things that coalesce together for a community and are actually doing the things that are best for the neighborhoods and the areas that we live in. And I think it's a very Iranian, Persian philosophy about seeing the world, about building something that'll outlast you. That's for the legacy, and not just the legacy, let's say, of your children from an individualistic perspective, but anywhere that you live, and where you're a partner within these neighborhoods, or a person amongst a larger community. And if you look at our logo, that this particular one is unique to us, and we have the trademark and things around it, is actually called an infinity knot. And an infinity knot has been seen in every major culture, from Genghis Khan to the Mayans to the Iranians. And what it means is the marriage of divine wisdom and human measurement. And when you look at it, you see right angles and triangles and sacred geometry and most, religious symbols you can find if you look hard enough. And that has been the guiding light of everything that we've done, is to do something that is bigger than us. I think that the success of our investors and the projects are proof enough that we've done that in a way that's most favorable to others first. And we've always said that we make money with our investors, not off of them.
You answered a question of mine that I had on the docket, which was getting a better explanation of your logo. I've seen it in and around just our respective communities, so I'm glad I got that one checked off. And your point about building empires, not necessarily from a monetary perspective, but to just for the desire to build and create at the end of the day.
That's right. And the way you said it too, the way you explained your podcast comes from a very Iranian vantage point of wanting to have something for your kids, and not for any reason, but to hear my thoughts. And what you're saying intuitively is something where the foundation, where I came from and where I am now. And even your language is so Iranian of my kids, kids, kids. And you're not saying it from a place of, a narcissistic vantage point. It's saying, I want to document this thing so that I can share it, so that I can look at my own growth and my own trajectory and how my thoughts have changed and evolved, and what I was thinking there at 27 versus, there, and what my kids can talk about. That to me is empire building, because I've always told people, and this is a little part of my book, and by no means is it the great American novel. Maybe it's worth the $15 on Amazon, but no promises. Is you want to build an empire monetarily. I believe you build yourself into an empire. You build yourself first, and then business becomes a natural extension of those things. I'm big into health and wellness. Anybody that knows me knows that. There's probably more press in the New York Post and the Wall Street Journal about my health regimens because of that exact point. Is I'm going to invest in me, not from a place of vanity, but a place of how am I supposed to serve? How am I supposed to do the things that I want to do for the people around me if I'm not in my highest and best self? And with 150 vitamins a day that are custom created for me, and hyperbaric chambers and stem cell treatments, and all the way to Tony Robbins seminars and meditations, and are really about that, or about being the best I can be to give the best that I possibly can, and ascribing to this Japanese tradition called Kaizen. And Kaizen is constant, never-ending improvement. And I think that's really the essence of all empire builders. And like I said, an empire builder, could be someone. And I was delivering pizzas and flipping burgers not long ago. Okay. And so when I was delivering pizzas, we also made the pizzas and delivered them. In my own mind, the energy I moved off of was, I'm the best pizza delivery boy in the world. And I hope everybody has that same way that they feel about themselves. I saw Drake, who, if you read the book, we had some business with many, many years ago, has started to, get the inevitable flack that anybody in his position has. He's, has more, as he says, I got more slaps than the Beatles. When you're in that position, people are going to say things. And I'm a, self-proclaimed hip hop head. And, recently when he starts getting this, whatever people are saying about him, he went on stage and I really liked it. And they said, well, what do I think about this? I think that I'm going to stay right here, and I'm going to move off the energy that I'm the best in the world. And I hope that in the way he positioned it was to his fans of saying, I hope you have that same energy too. I want you to walk away thinking you're the best of what you do, or you're going to be the best at what you do. And I'm a huge proponent in that self-belief at whatever phase of life you're in, whatever empire you're building. It started with a sandbox, and now it's turned into millions and millions of square feet. But the mindset, the vision, and the energy has been the same since day one. In fact, I think I had it much more before the world kicked me in the teeth more along the way than I do now.
All right, I didn't think we were going to go here, but we're going to go here. You brought up Drake, and that's a great hot button topic for me. I have an episode of the podcast called It's All a Blur that I was recapping when I went to his concert this past summer. I'm a huge Drake fan myself. I had wanted to go for a long time.
Anybody that's not a Drake fan is a hater.
Couldn't agree with you more. I could not agree with you more. And what I was talking about, and it was a solo episode, and I was thinking it was about the point of manifestation. And all he's doing on these songs and when he's on stage the last song he sang on the first leg of the tour was Legend. If I die, I'm
Yeah.
a legend.
Yeah.
And at the end of the show, he just he kept talking about gratitude, and he's on stage with hundreds of thousands of folks talking about I'm the man. You guys don't get it, do you? And all of these songs, he's talking about how great he is. Or he's talking early stage Drake. He's talking about his rise to the top. In the middle of his career, he was talking about, hey, I'm ascending to the top. I'm still better than you guys. And now it's, hey, I'm inevitably, it's
Yeah.
undeniably, I am the
Yeah.
best. And it's this idea. I was thinking about this idea, and I still do, about manifestation. He's talking about and creating this energy, and other people around him are almost praying to him and for him. And I think it's the same thing with Taylor Swift or other artists, but for Drake, I see it firsthand because of how
Well, it's
positive.
also in the genre,
Yeah.
and Drake, it's in the best way possible. Drake is Jewish, okay, and when you look at the Jewish culture, so much of what he's done in terms of his work ethic and the way that he professes certain thing has a lot of Jewish influence that I don't think is really explored or unpacked enough in the best way possible, because you look at the Jewish culture, you have some of the greatest performers, scientists, doctors, lawyers for the smallest demographic ever, and he shares that same thing, and the level of persecution that he's got just for being half black and half white, not to mention being Jewish, not to mention being Canadian in American hip hop. I mean, it didn't hurt that Lil Wayne, who is the greatest rapper of all time, which I'll argue with anybody to the end of time, on sheer breadth and prolific, and bringing for the culture and signing Drake and Wayne and all those reasons. No one can mess with Eminem. That's another discussion. But him doing what he's doing speaks a lot to that. So I agree with you the way that, and he said it very clearly the other day when he made this comment about professing his greatness, he guised it in the way of to inspire others to do the same. And he's done that from the very, very beginning. And I think that we have a lot more to see from him, and anybody that's throwing rocks at the throne, as I said, there's other people that are lyrically in the rap genre that might be able to go bar for bar from him, but that's not what his greatness is. His greatness is how well he picks beats. It's how well that he can, he was one of the first to be able to sing and rap together. And quite frankly, the ability to make hit songs. I mean, that is the essence of rap. No matter what anybody tries to say about this guy raps better, has better lyrics, rap was always about making money. It was always about making hits at the end of the day. And he's done that. He's done that in a way that he'll be remembered for a very, very long time. And he has my blessing all the way around.
The one other musical overlap that I'd love to talk about quickly along the same vein of just good lyrics and good beats is Mike. And I saw he was wearing one of your hats once on one of his podcasts. And he has a lyric in one of his songs, Sunfalls, where he says, "You threw me in the fire, I came out with the tan."
Yeah.
And that's why, again, to the vein of you taking the $3,500 loan, getting a business started, and just going and building and creating something. I feel like there's so much to be said about people that just go out and do it what they want to be doing.
Well, Mike is a very deep soul, for one, and he is, I would venture to say, is quite literally one of my best friends in the world. In fact, one of the first times we spent kind of a profound amount of time together was in Fairfield, Iowa, meditating together. Ironically,
Wow.
and when he went through this phase of becoming sober and really tapping into his spiritual side, we were very close throughout that stuff. And he would tell you firsthand that he's I've coached him a lot through some of the business sides of things, but his lyrics, his music are absolutely profound. Those that don't really know, he's formerly Mike Stud, during a time that around Post Malone, which I think so much of what Post Malone has done is influenced by Mike, not the other way around. And we can argue that at any given moment. But his new album is coming out soon. The highs, the lows, and the mids is a trilogy work. I think the highs is one of the most incredible albums that's come out in recent years. And what he does so beautifully is he's been able to bridge the gap between his own deep spiritual plight, and go through the phases of from that kind of frat boy, kind of rapper music, and reinvent himself in a way where he's singing, and he's a poet, and he's actually, I'll tell you, one of the gifts I gave him for his birthday one year is I went and took a bunch of the lyrics to his songs and I re-signified them into a poem to give back to him, to make sure that he took a moment to really see the greatness that he's done. And he's not only one of my favorite artists in the world, I think that he is, one of the most authentic, beautiful souls I've ever met in my life.
So cool. And what a great omen about, your upcoming trip to Fairfield as well. And that's where you guys first got plugged in. I'd love to tie it back to you a little more, Ari. And so again, you threw yourself into the fire, taking that $3,500 loan out while you're in law school. To your point, most people can barely get through law school just studying and taking their tests, let alone getting a entrepreneurial venture off the ground. Did you always have that entrepreneurial spirit? And
Yeah.
when I know we were talking about empire building and the imprint that your father gave to you as a kid, but that was always in you, and you knew that that was something you wanted to do.
I didn't have the words for it. We were, living with my mom for the first part of my life. We were pretty poor, and but I was always selling something. I selling baseball cards and airheads, and always had money underneath the bed, or underneath the house at certain moments. Everything was always for sale. And so I had a, deep, profound awareness of being poor at a very young age, and that I didn't want to be poor. And, what my family went through after the Iranian revolution, my grandfather was the king of Iran's psychiatrist, medical doctor. My great uncle was the highest senior ranking military general in the Iranian army. So, the stories that I heard of the family kind of losing everything and starting back, which is the story of so many Iranian Americans that came here. It's not completely unique, obviously, to our family. It gave me a hunger of kind of wanting to get back what was already mine. So I think the difference in, the way that I work is working from a place of, this is mine, like this is my birthright, and I'm the best guy for the job, so I'm going to keep doing it, and nothing's going to stop me doing it because it's mine. Versus I'm going to go out and see what I can get, and get a piece of the pie, so to speak. But I was born in Austin. I grew up, in Dallas pretty much. Went to law school in San Antonio. Went to undergrad at Texas A&M. Of course, they were smart enough not to let me in initially, so I had to go to community college before getting in. And this next fall, I'm starting to teach a course at Texas A&M to the business honors program called The Art of Business. And so much of that course and so much of that is, this place of being a Texan and an American, through and through, but also being an Iranian. And I think that that balance, or I should say, or like I talk about a lot, is the seesaw between, I think, balance of anyone that wants to do anything great is such a fallacy, and it's such an incorrect terminology, because balance does not give you greatness. Any extreme of anything, whether in bodybuilding or even happiness or money, an extreme necessitates lack of balance. That's just what's going to happen. So seesawing between the places, and being wildly focused in the moment that you are. And as a business, we talk about, before we build anything, looking at the topography of the project and the area and the history, and this, concept of honoring the past, but more importantly, enjoying the present, because that's what you have. You honor the past, you enjoy the present, and then you build the future. And that has been the governing, principles around what we've done. Admittedly, I've done a horrific job of it personally, either, dwelling too much on the past, or thinking too much in the future. It sounds really good when I say it out loud, but I'm as guilty as anyone of not practicing it as much as I should. And and I think there's a lot there. I mean, right now, this is a moment where everything is available, and I think that people that have a deep hunger. I mean, I found myself last week going through some refinements in our systems and processes, and expanding some of our departments, and I thought about it, and I spent, almost a week, till 2, 3 o'clock in the morning in the office watching YouTube videos, and just free, nothing fancy, and taking notes and watching these great entrepreneurs and watching these incredible TED Talks, and how to build an elite sales team or whatever. And I'm literally there taking notes and going back and forth. And I just had a moment where I sat beside myself. I'm like, well, this is incredible. Like, there's free resources that are out here, like needing consultants and this or all these other things. Like, it's such a great time to be alive as an entrepreneur, and to be able to have, such a wealth of information at your fingertips. So the people that want it, it's out there. You don't need all these fancy courses and this and whatever shit. Wherever you are, if anybody's out here listening that has any kind of a dream that can actually watch this video through whatever modality, phone, smartphone, TV, whatever the hell they're watching this on, everything else you could possibly need to get to the next step is right there if you just put the time in. And what we've built is about input and output. I'm not the smartest guy by any stretch of the imagination, but you can't outwork me, and I'll put that on anybody. Like, when people were working 40-hour weeks, I was working 120-hour weeks for 20 years with no days off, without hyperbole. And so whatever I've done as a 41-year-old CEO, and real estate is not technology. Like, you don't just get to build $1 billion platform in real estate as a purist. There's just not enough time unless you're absolutely out of your mind. But if I can do it, I assure you, anybody here is more than capable of doing it. For a kid that had a speech impediment and barely got out of high school, it wasn't even let into college, and for good reason. Like, I don't think I deserve to be able to get it at the moment, but but the work and the time and the energy change the cards a little bit.
Let me ask you this, Ari, as we round out here, so you can get to your flight. Maybe starting with an anecdote. For me, diving into the world of everything we talked about, the forefront of meditation, mindset, motivation, spirituality. I read the Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz, and that was the first kind of dose of this realm. I think I grew up a very faithful individual, but never, as faithful and spiritual, but not religious. Now, the Four Agreements, last one, do your best. And you brought up a good point about when you were flipping pizzas and delivering pizzas, you were going to be the best.
Also, right?
Impeccable with your word. Don't make assumptions. And do your best those are the three. And then
I don't agree with all those, by the way, but that's another discussion.
We'll add it for when you come back on. But do your best. You mentioned, when you're delivering pizzas, you're going to be the best pizza deliverer you can possibly be. I think there's so much to be, and that ties back to presence and so much what you talked about as well.
And do your best. I think that the focus on that is yours, and not some comparative, stereotypical, delusional concept of what the best is. Like, looking at what yours is with respect to your level, your money, your time, your energy, your free time, everything together. I think the operative word is your, in the most personal sense. One of the rappers I love so much, his name is Russ. And those that aren't onto Russ, for the love of God, he's the best rapper of that generation by leaps and bounds. And he has a line where they ask him, they ask who the best is. My question is, what's the metric? And that really hit me hard, because to this point of saying, find your metric of what you're going to be the best in, because everybody can be the best in the world in their particular thing once they factor in that piece, as you're saying, of your best, your thing, your moment. And sometimes it's just winning the moment, man. Some people it's just, figure out how to not pick up another cigarette or not another cookie, or get to work, or just get out of bed. I mean, there's so many ways to be the best that you can at that moment, but the more that you can focus on that, everything is truly limitless, and not being cheesy.
Limitless, man. And doing your best today is very different than my best yesterday. And
of course,
it's you against you at the end of the day. And so
you wouldn't be doing your best now if you did do your best before. The fact that you did your best yesterday means that the best you're doing today is better than the last one.
Yeah. It's for me, that was my gateway drug into this world. I'd love to, hear your, suggestion, advice for anyone that's grinding their gears, white knuckling through life right now, swimming upstream. What's the best starting point to try to get your mind right? Because to your point, mind, body, spirit, all connected. For me, getting my mind right helped me get my body right and everything else. So for you, what's the best gateway to this world to help someone that might be out there listening?
Well, look, it's a very, very difficult question to put into an isolated thing. It depends on a lot of different things. But what I will tell you is that those that are answering that question are already doing something. So if we
Mm.
make that, if we make the assumption for that discussion that people are doing something, and I know you've heard this before, but I'm going to elaborate on it a little bit, is keep going. Mike talks about this a lot too, and you have to realize the bad times will go away. They will pass, and so will the good times. What you think is good and what you think is bad, you can't get too happy and you can't get too down. And if there's a way to really digest that deep in your soul, that no matter what you're looking at, if you can just get to the next moment and get to the next moment and get to the next moment and get to the next moment, and when it's good, you have something that is one of the most valuable commodities in the universe. It's called momentum. And when momentum happens, exponential growth happens. When you get down, you just have to figure out a way to keep moving forward. If it's a crawl, if it's an inch, if it's a scrape, because inevitably when you do that, you'll get that magical force called momentum again. But you have to just remember, don't take it too personal when it's down. People don't give a fuck about you. They have their own shit going on. Sorry to break it to everybody, including your own parents. They have their own stuff. They're picking their own vantage point. Don't take it personal as much as you can. It's not. When things are too good, don't get too excited. Keep your head down and keep working. And if you can ascribe to those few mantras, I think you'll be okay.
That's right. All right, the sun is shining on you. I think it's another wink from the universe for the perfect timing of this conversation. And I just would love to give you a chance to plug anything to my audience. We've got a great book on Amazon. It's gritty, and I love the read. And I'd love to give you a chance to just, round out the conversation here for my audience that might not be familiar with you before this.
Sure. The book is called The Gift of Failure. It was written by yours truly. If you listen to it on Spotify or whatever other outlets is there. I actually did the voice recording myself, which in hindsight was actually torture, and I wouldn't do it again, but I did do. And as I said before, a lot of these issues we've talked about are in the book, and it's pretty much everything I've screwed up in my life, and something that came out of it. And I think when people reach any level of success, a lot of times it's that you forget along the way what you learned and really what it took to get there. And as I said before, it's not the great American novel by any stretch of the imagination, but I think those who read it will get some value in kind of a health, wealth, and happiness, and to kind of the multi-dimensional approach that I think that to do well in this game that we call life.
Let's get that SEO up. So instead of when you look up Ari, it's not your website, it's not 150 subs. It's the book on Amazon or wherever else you get your plugs from. But Ari, thank you again for your time. Safe travels to Iowa, and I'll talk to you soon, man.
You got it, buddy.